Sheshe, Ekabo, and welcome to the Ifagbemiro Show. Tonight, our topic, or today, depending on when you are viewing the stream, our topic for today is going to be unity in the Orisha community. And I want to say that I'm not a spokesperson for any Orisha organization. I am just an individual who is sharing my view and my opinions on the issue which I am about to discuss. My intention, of course, is not to be controversial in any way whatsoever. It is not intentional. I do not have any plans of stepping on anyone's toes. But I will, of course, try my best to be aware of the sensitivities of all the viewers and the persons who are going to be actually hearing this stream. While at the same time, my intention is to be as objective, as humble, and as honest as I can be on the subject matter. All right? On the issue of unity in the Orisha community of Trinidad and Tobago, there are many factors that has to be examined in order for us to be able to move forward as a community. Trinidad is a cosmopolitan island, and on this island we have many different nations of people. I don't want to just say ethnic groups, but I want to say nations, because in reality Trinidad is not a nation, but Trinidad is a combination of many different nations, because what we have in reality is we have people belonging to different groups that has their origin in different nations of the world. Okay? Now, the very first subject that I want to talk about is, where is our home? Okay? For many of us, we would say because we were born in Trinidad that this is our home. Well, it is the place we reside, okay, but it is not the place of our actual origin. Many of us have ancestors that originated in various parts of Africa, and at the very early point in our history, we would have had African people traveling out of Africa and into various parts of the world. My own personal background in Moorish science, before I became a member of the Orisha community, has taught me that very early in the discoveries, so-called discoveries of the Americas, that there were African people who came here in very early times, which would mean that for many of us who are in the Americas, some of us who they refer to as Caribs, would in fact have had ancestry right here in the Americas. They would have descended from Africans who came to the Americas very early. One particular notable character on the history record is a king from Mali by the name of Mansa Kankan Musa. It is today said that he would have been, on historical records, the wealthiest man in the world. Mansa Musa came to the Americas with several hundred ships, never returned to Mali. His brother then became the king in Mali. He would have settled right here in the Americas, and would have had a kingdom in the Americas. From that kingdom, there would have been people who would have been his descendants. Okay? So on the issue of home, Africa, or what we today call Africa, all right, I don't want to go into all the debates about all the different names that land mass used to carry back in the ancient times, because this lecture is about unity. But I'm saying this to say, whether your ancestors came here during the times of slavery, or after the times of slavery, or before the times of slavery, all of our homes would still be Africa. And I could even extend that to all of humanity, because we know that the oldest remains of any human beings that were ever found were found in Africa. Now, the reason that I went into all of this is simply to explain that it really does not matter at the end of the day how you choose to view yourself. As long as your skin is like mine, whether it be a shade lighter or a shade darker, we all came from the same ancestors, which would make us one people. Because of our presence in the diaspora, our miseducation, us being misinformed about many things about ourselves, this has created a great measure of confusion in the minds of most of our people. I am not in this stream going to attempt to convince you of all the facts concerning those matters, because this particular stream concerns the main objective of unity. And what I want us to understand is it does not matter what you call yourself. It does not matter how you view yourself. But for every nation of the world, we are viewed as one people. So it doesn't matter what you call yourself. Whether you call yourself Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other name. It does not matter what labels you've been conditioned to accept. At the end of the day, we are all one people. We are viewed by other nations as one people. So we really need to remove all of those conditionings that has brought about a great measure of confusion in our minds, and understand that we share the same ancestors. Prior to the times of what we know as slavery, we practiced one tradition. And when I say one tradition, I mean fundamentals. All the fundamentals of our tradition was commonly shared among most of the people who live in what we call Africa, before Africa was carved up by the Europeans, given names by the Europeans, and before their languages were destroyed and corrupted by the European influences. Okay? Now, I want to talk now a little bit about unity being our way of life, and about unity being the way of the African man, and the African woman, and the African family, and the African village, and the African community, and the African nation by and large. And today, because we are in all parts of the globe, we also have to look now at the diaspora also. Now, it is an established fact that we all came from one place. It is an established fact that before the Europeans invaded and divided our motherland, that we all spoke a common language. There may have been dialects of the language from place to place. There may have been variations in patterns of tradition, but fundamentally the language and the cultures were basically the same. So for us who are in the diaspora, and in case we have any confusion in our mind about who we really are, it is very easy to figure out the sources of the confusion, the conditioning we received to function in the way that we currently function. Under the system of slavery and oppression during the colonial era, it was necessary to break and destroy all elements that allowed us to function as a proud and independent people, because we were needed to work the plantations right here in Trinidad to plant rice, cane, cocoa, and whatever other crops that they considered to be profitable. Cocoa, coffee also. So, because they wanted us to work, because they did not want us to know who we are, they went to all extreme lengths with no limits. Because if it meant taking your life, if you were a rebellious slave and a person who refused to accept and to relinquish your own identity, you were considered dangerous and a threat to their workforce. Unity has always been the way of Africa. It's the lifestyle, the village life in the African continent. Much of the tradition we were able to hold on to, as well as now with modern times, a lot of it is being destroyed rapidly. There was a time right here in Trinidad where there were villages, and within the framework of that villages, the elders reigned supreme. They were respected. They were the respected authorities. They were the ones that members of the community would go to for advice and for guidance. The elders were the ones who had the authority to correct a child. If a child was seen anywhere in public being disorderly, they could have punished the child, they could have corrected the child, and they could have even go home to the child's parents and lodge a complaint that would be listened to. All of these aspects of the tradition, they are no more. The unity that we had in our communities and in the villages is no more. But the message that I am bringing is an appeal to members of our community to by all efforts necessary to reinstate these types of values into our community, into our family, into our children, because we are now in some times where a lot of changes are about to happen. And if we do not take control of these things, where would we be? Why is it important for us to have unity as a people? What are the possible benefits that we could have if we were to be unified as a people? Okay, I would try to propose a couple of answers. Now, let us just look around us for a couple of minutes. Let us look at the other communities that exist in Trinidad. I don't want to say the other nations, because to many people they think Trinidad is a nation. As I said earlier, Trinidad is made up of many nations. But let's look at some of the other communities. What are the identifying marks of these other communities? Is it just an issue of their ethnicity? The land of their origin? Is that the only common factor? No, it's not. But It's one of the main factors that identify specific groups that work together in unity. Beside the factor of ethnicity, what are some of the other cohesive factors that allows these communities to advance in terms of economics, in terms of religion, or if you want to call it tradition or spirituality? Because both spirituality, religion, and economics are the products of a tradition. Yes, they are the products of a tradition, because religion is a very small factor of a tradition. Many of the social institutions that belong to many of these other communities, how were they built? Were they not built through the unified effort and sacrifices of members of those groups? Sure, that's exactly how they were built. The members of these various communities were able to unify based on what is referred to as common interests. Yes, common interests. Don't think that members of these other groups that has economic success and that has built institutions in this country do not have differences. I can call many examples. If you look at the Muslim communities, there is Sunnis, there is Ahmadiyya, and there are many different types of Muslims. But in Trinidad, they are united together to establish institutions such as schools, associations, credit unions, yes, and businesses. Not because they all agree, but because they understand the concept of having what is called a common interest. Now, one of the important factors that lends towards unified success is the concept of helping yourself. And I would say there are great benefits to be derived when a community of people could get together with common interests and try to help themselves. And I would name for you the most important benefit of helping yourself. Beside having the sense of accomplishment, which is what you feel, a great sense of pride when you get out there and you do things for yourself, the most important factor is something that is called autonomy. Meaning, if you build something for yourself, then no one else can make a claim in what you have. No one else is in a position to dictate to you what you should do with what you have. So I'm saying to the African traditional community, whether you call yourself Orisha, Ifa Orisha, Shango Baptist, Spiritual Baptist, Shouta Baptist, you all follow one tradition. It's called African tradition. The various trappings that we debate about, these little differences, they are there and cannot be denied. While at the same time, the differences are a lot less than the commonalities. The first commonality is we all share one ancestry. because we're not talking about people in the entire Caribbean. We're talking about people in Trinidad. And historically, if you were to have heard my first stream, you would discover that many of us in Trinidad share a common ancestry. Even if your ancestors came from different parts of West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, North Africa, even South Africa, when they came to Trinidad with their tradition, all of these practices were assimilated together with the fact that there would have been what is called miscegenation. By miscegenation, all I mean is everybody sleep with everybody and produce offsprings. So therefore, we are all related. So if you think you're different because you worship different, or because you follow a different theology, the world does not see you any different. So apparently the only person who is being deceived, who is unaware of themselves, are the members of our community, because everybody else knows, as long as you dress a particular way and you worship a particular way, you are all lumped together and labeled as the same people. Oh, them that's practice obia. So what? You gonna explain it? No, we believe in Jesus. We just read from the Bible. No, they still gonna say you practice in obia because you're dressing in African clothes. You're catching the spirit and you're talking in some kind of foreign language. So you're practicing obia, whatever that is, because we ain't gonna get into that with this stream. But I'm saying we are viewed by everyone as one people, because everyone else knows if you come from India, you're Indian. Everyone else knows if you come from China, you're Chinese. Everyone else knows if you come from Syria, you're a Syrian. But the only people who seem to be very confused and want to call themselves Trinidadian are the African people, my people, our people. Because we don't understand. Before we were Trinidadian, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Shouta, Spiritual Baptist, Shango Baptist, Ifa Orisha, we practiced African tradition. And because of the fact that many of our ancestors came from different places, we were able over that 500 years period to produce a unique form of practice that is in fact an amalgamation of all these different elements into one. And that is what makes that practice uniquely Trinidadian, if there is such a thing. But in reality, it's Africa. Right? So, as I've said before, self-help and doing things yourself allows you the power and the right to be able to make your own decisions. I do not have to give examples, but I'm sure many of you who are listening are aware of communities that have leaders who have many times told the government that they are not going to take anything they tell them, that they are going to function independent, because what they have, they built it with their own hands. And that is a right that they have, because they have worked, established their institutions without a whole bunch of aid from the government. So one of the keys that we must recognize is that to unite ourselves, to build our institutions ourselves, and to advance, we must have the intention to work and to earn the things that we want for ourselves. I wouldn't say there is no other way. We could depend on the government. And then the government could always be telling us what we need to do and what we should do with everything that we have. But in order to maintain that power over what you do, you always try to build, to accomplish, to achieve, through unification, of course, on your own. Now, for us to unite, which is not impossible, by the way, we must all be willing to sit at the table of common interest, meaning we must all want one thing. Putting aside whatever differences that exist. And I know that right there is the greatest challenge. Because many of our leaders have super egos. They are big, important people. Persons holding titles of notoriety. And this is not a personal attack. Please, don't think that I'm talking about you individually, because I'm not. This stream is directed at the collective in all African traditional groups, not just one part of our community. This is for all the groups. Those who use the Bible and say the Hail Marys, those who say the Orikis,